Now, the question I'm asking this morning is, what is the problem with Labour? Is it Labour itself? Is it some of the constituent parts? Is it Keir Starmer himself? And the reason that I'm asking that is there's an article in The Times. The most senior ministers in Labour are very concerned, as is Keir Starmer, about Nigel Farage and Reform UK. They've now begun drawing up a detailed strategy for taking on Reform UK. It suggests that voters are also stopping, no longer listening to the main parties. Labour is attempting to address the cost of living, the state of the NHS, immigration and a state of decline. They are planning a three-pronged approach depicting Farage as a cheerleader for Putin, highlighting his support for Liz Truss's mini-budget and bringing up various comments about the role of the private sector in the NHS. But they're also worried that these claims about two-tier Keir are sticking with voters. Let me go to you, James. Where is the problem in Labour? I've never known a political party to disintegrate so quickly. Is it the lack of joined-up thinking? Is it certain characters and individuals within Labour that are the problem? Or is Keir Starmer the problem?
I don't think any of the possible problems you've pointed to are entirely correct, David. I think there's multiple issues here at play. It was never going to be easy for a Labour government when it got in, no matter who was in charge of it. It was always going to be an uphill struggle because this is what the Labour government looks like. Even Tony Blair, who, had wooed the establishment entirely and who had many establishment figures on his side, it's the Labour Party still, first and foremost. And we hear the attacks and we see the attacks that have been used.
But they don't know what they're doing, do
years.
they?
So
they don't know what they're doing.
I mean, what does that mean? Define.
Well, they had a fully costed plan pre-election. Now it seems they have no plan.
I think the direction's definitely been a problem with regard to Rachel Reeves's kind of economic vision, how that's communicated. There's been challenges there, and I think there are problems, and there's been mistakes made, especially on the communications front, around what they're doing with the economy and what the vision is. And I think part of that is fear-based. I think they're scared to take a stand and say exactly what Labour's values are in government. And they shouldn't be, because they were elected. They were given a mandate democratically. They should be able to say, this is what Labour's governments look like in power. But I think, there's a huge presence in the media, a huge force in conservative media that scares them. And that, there are debates and populist arguments coming up left, right and centre that Labour they haven't had the discussion internally to decide what their actual position is. Questions that for the past 100 years haven't been on the slate for a Labour Party to answer of itself. So, it's going to take time for them to sort things like that out.
Let me throw that over to Will, who is failing to contain his mirth.
Yeah, when in doubt, blame Rupert. I was just having a chat with Rupert by the water cooler earlier, and that big, scary media titan.
But it's the press, it's the media's fault, James says.
It's always the media's fault. It's always Rupert's fault. The two big problems. Starmer is a net liability for them. He is not a talented politician in the way that, say, Blair was. But I think the bigger problem is this is not the government for the moment. And to be fair, the Conservatives by the end were not the government for the moment either. This is a country that they have correctly identified does need to grow, but every instinct in the Labor Party is around wealth redistribution, is around tax, it is around spend. And the only way you can really get an economy growing is by lowering regulation, is by lowering taxation and reducing the size of the state. They are not capable of doing that. I can show you every possible economic indicator over the last 50 years in which the size of the state is directly correlated with low growth. This is an economic fact. It is not up for debate. This is an economic fact.
No,
James?
it's an opinion. It's an opinion. It's very much not a fact.
In the last...
I'm not going to stand here and say that my economic worldview, as somebody on the left of politics, is fact. It's my opinion, and I'm entitled to it.
But what we are seeing is, as the tax burden goes up, as you then have employers' national insurance contributions going up, we are seeing firms that are downsizing, not employing people, or closing. That is a disaster, right?
I do not expect either of you to agree with that vision.
Well, that's a fact, isn't it?
People who are on the other side of politics.
No, hang on a minute. That's a fact. The policies enacted by Labour have actually directly caused businesses to close.
That is not a fact. It is not a fact. And it is not, you can't just represent your opinion, Will, as fact. This is the whole problem with you and with your kind of politics, is you will sit there and you will call people like me elite without any understanding of who I am. You don't know who I am. You didn't know who I was before this morning. And yet you'll paint everything opposed to you as elite whilst constantly representing the rich and the powerful.
Oh, you're the rich and powerful.
Such an elitist
No, you
way of saying
represent
it.
the rich and powerful.
I've got to go to a break.
No country has ever taxed or spent its way to growth. But more importantly, the Starmer government clearly, whilst it's talking growth, it doesn't have a clear plan to get there. I don't know what it was doing for the last 14 years.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. Will Kingston, political commentator at The Spectator, James Matthewson, former Labour advisor. Thank you for your time. That was today's Head to Head.